International Studies Vice President Seth Jones, and CNN counterterrorism analyst Phil Mudd. Susan, let me start with you. For months, Putin has repeatedly claimed that he had no intentions of going to war with Ukraine. He reiterated this last week during a meeting with the German Chancellor. Were the diplomatic talks with the West real ever, or was it just part of a strategy to buy time?
You know, Jake, I think that the U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken said the other day that, they never really were for real and that it was Putin's intention all along to invade Ukraine. He said that tragically just a day before the invasion, standing alongside the Ukrainian foreign minister here in Washington. And, it's my view that there never was a real diplomatic process, largely because Putin's demands were of the kind that it's impossible to negotiate with. He set forth essentially a demand that the NATO and the West turn back time, and turning back time is not possible. Changing the constitution of Ukraine to disavow NATO membership, things like that. So I don't think Putin was ever serious about diplomacy here, and he certainly has a long record of lying to other world leaders that should make them very wary of being credulous when it comes to any commitments he gives to them.
Seth, a Kremlin spokesperson gave this bizarre and rather offensive explanation for the invasion, saying that the Russian forces are in part engaging in denazification of Ukraine, removing Nazis from Ukraine, even though there's zero proof of any Nazi-like efforts. And we should mention the democratically elected president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is Jewish. How do you explain this? What do you make of this?
Well, look, I think this is part of the Kremlin's rationale, disinformation campaign to go in. But I'll tell you, Jake, what has me worried about that kind of language, and I'm already hearing from sources inside of Ukraine along these lines that the Russians are making lists of individuals. I actually worry that they'll start to conduct killings against individuals in Ukraine, government officials, members of the security services, and the military, particularly ones that have vowed to fight against Russia. And I worry about war crimes now coming up with those kinds of words.
And Phil, U.S. intelligence appears to have been pretty accurate when it comes to Putin's thinking in the lead up to the invasion, not to mention, it was yesterday that we were saying that U.S. intelligence they were warning Ukraine it was going to be a full-scale invasion, not just a partial one. But none of this clearly stopped Putin. What more do you think the U.S. intelligence community is doing right now?
Boy, we're missing half the question. We focused on the question of what the Russians will do. I remember back in the day, I used to support the CIA program to oppose the Russian invasion into Afghanistan. So let me take you into that piece of the puzzle. Question one, from the intelligence perspective, how are the Ukrainians doing against the Russians? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Are there opportunities there that we're learning about in terms of the Russian offensive to support the Ukrainians? There's intelligence coming in, I guarantee you, on how the Ukrainians are performing. Second and final question, looking at the perimeter, in particular Poland. If we want to support the Ukrainians, if we want to use the Europeans, including Poland, how willing are they to support us? How willing are they to back, for example, shipping of weapons through Europe? And what are the attitudes of political elites in Europe about providing military support to Ukraine? So we focused on one piece, Jake. What are the Russians doing? Now some of the attention's got to shift to the other piece. Can we help the Ukrainians? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And who's going to be with us if we want to do that, Jake?
Susan, we're seeing the Russian government arresting anti-war protesters in Moscow and throughout the country. We saw something similar during the 2014 invasion of Crimea. Does Putin care about this internal dissent?
Absolutely. He is, like many dictators, an insecure dictator, and it's almost certain that this external aggression will go hand in hand with a further round of internal crackdown and, the evisceration of civil society and democratic small d opposition has been fundamental to, Putin's rule over these last 2 decades. In fact, over the last year, you've seen a very significant crackdown by Putin, the arrest of Alexei Navalny, the most significant potential political opponent to him. Navalny is actually on trial again this very week on trumped-up charges from his prison cell. You saw the shutting down of Memorial, the leading human rights group. The fact that so many people did come out despite this risk to themselves in the police state is I think, notable, but that will be cause for further crackdown and paranoia on the part of the government. There's always been a connection between the internal cracking down of dissent in Russia and Putin's use of external aggression. And I think we're going to see that again this time.